Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Car Sim and Race Driver Show. And with me today is a very special guest who has even been brave enough to come back for a second helping. It is Josh Martin.
Hi, Hugh. Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for being brave enough to come back on the show. Normally people run a mile and deny any existence that they've ever been here. But you've come back on the show and you've got lots of good and exciting things to talk about today because you're an esports legend and you're very big on all that side of esports. So there'll be very exciting news, I'm sure, as we delve into your career and what's been happening and what's all the ins and outs of esports. Now, a wee while ago, we had you back on the show and you were going to tell us about your new career, things that were happening in your esports career, but it was just a bit too early before you were allowed to publicize it. So what's been the big news?
There's been loads of things going on. So obviously, like you kind of alluded to with the recent surge in esports, with the self-isolation and motorsport going into lockdown, I've been fortunate enough to take part in the Redline Motorsport. I've been doing some online races with real drivers. And then GT World, obviously the Real World Manufacturer Series, they invited me to take part in their charity race. So it's been a very busy few weeks, kind of training away on the simulator and been loads of racing, loads of action, and it's been very busy times, yeah.
And how did you get on? Because you had a very big race at the weekend there. But did you start well and finish well, or how did it go? Or was it a mix?
It's been a bit touch and miss. So the first race was the Redline Motorsport. That was a 60-minute endurance race. I say endurance, a sprint race, sorry. Kyalami in South Africa on Assetto Corsa Competizione. So that was a really interesting race because it was my first time racing against real drivers. So you're coming out the pit lane and, David Perel, Mirko Bricolotti, Dennis Lind were all flying past you on track. And it was like, okay, these are real drivers. This is their real cars. It was a really surreal experience. So I picked I'm trying to remember what I was driving there. I think I was driving a Lexus. So a bit of a heavier GT3 car compared to the rest. And the pace was good. And on about lap 2, I found myself being chased by Jordan Pepper, who obviously was, I believe he won the Bathurst 10 hour recently.
All right.
This real world driver got lots of credentials behind him, and I was quite excited. I was like, right, we're gonna have a proper race on, and he went straight into the back of me. So so we had to carry a bit of damage through the race, and we nursed it home, finished just outside the top 20, which is a bit of a shame, but it was a real experience for me to kind of have this opportunity against real world drivers. And then on this weekend just gone, on Sunday, we had the SRO charity race, which was raising funds for the COVID-19 work in Italy because they're being hit pretty hard at the moment. And again, there was some real world drivers in there, and it consisted of 2 qualifying races plus a grand final. So unfortunately, we got taken out by one of the F1 Esports drivers in the about 10 minutes to go, which put us just outside the top 20, which meant I didn't qualify for the final. But, obviously it was for charity. We raised just over 8,000 euros, I think, so quite a bit of money. And again, it was great getting to go wheel to wheel with some of the real guys. I was battling against 2 Aston Martin drivers, it was nice to see that the real world and the sim stuff kind of translates so that we're on pace with each other. So it was really exciting. But I'm sure, as you've seen, there's so much going on, isn't there, at the moment?
Yeah. Well, we had a good laugh. We tried to commentate on one of the F1 Esports race that they did a couple of weeks ago. It had like Johnny Herbert and Nico Hockenheim. But unfortunately, my co-host was about 3 or 4 seconds behind me on YouTube. So when I got excited about something happening, he didn't. So that was the thing. So he couldn't quite figure out what was happening. And then it didn't show you an awful lot of what was happening, or in terms of the leaders and who was in what position. So it was quite hard because you see that the F1 cars and you think, oh, that's number 44, that's Hamilton. But it was some other person and it didn't have the names above them. So we were kind of clueless as to who it was. It was really impossible to try and figure out who was leading. So we are in a learning phase of trying to get better. But if it's one, I'm sure as they redo the streams and improve on what they can actually view, then the public can see it as well. But no, I think it's fantastic that they're all coming out. And what I would love to see, I have to say, is all the Formula One drivers actually doing their own esports race. I think that would be really good, because for all the F1 fans, I think there's definitely a place for the mixture. But I think for the F1 fans, we would love to get our money's worth, actually. The kind of thing, right? Let's get it going. They can't even pay there and sitting there doing nothing. And they all can easily afford a phenomenal rig setup. Yeah. So I think it would be quite good if you imagine if you could have a camera in the home of every F1 driver who was taking part, looking to see what they were doing. I'm sure you could do that remotely. And then you could see their reactions. And then in turn, they could play the game and see how they get on. I'm sure it would be quite fun. And it wouldn't be a championship event. It would just be an esports, thing. So they're not under the pressure of having to really do that. Well, they would want to do their best, but it's not going to mean too much unless they end up taking out most of the field. But no, I think it's really exciting, and it shows where the game is going. I've heard that seemingly on the current F1 game, the 2019 game, they might actually bring an update that's going to have the 2020 cars and 2020 tracks on it. So that could be quite good. That's what Jimmy Broadbent was saying. He put out a video about that. So that could be quite good. But no, I think it's great to have the Formula One stuff and having the mixture, because they had Johnny Herbert, and he was having a huge battle with a whole bunch of people, and his reactions were fantastic. But yeah, no, it's great to see it. And then of course for the GT side, which is what you've been doing, is great as well. I mean, I can't believe how big the field is. It's like 40 or 50 people that turn. There's so many cars on the track, and you've got a mixture of GT3 and GT4. I know that the one that Steve Alvarez Brown was doing yesterday with David Perel, they actually took out the leader. Then come in for pits, and he did a perfect pit maneuver on the leader as he was coming around the corner. And he went, "That's the leader," and they went, but he only he did spin out, but I think he didn't go too far back. So they kept going. I didn't see where they finished, because it was a 3-hour race, and we were doing our live stream last night. But no, it's great fun, and it does add quite a lot of atmosphere. And it's, as you say, to race against real drivers must be pretty good. I think it must be quite a good experience and good fun.
Well, that's it. I think it's definitely like you said. I think it'd be really cool to see Charles Leclerc go up against Verstappen, against Lando Norris in their own race. But I think the nice thing about what we're doing at the moment is we're seeing, within reason, the everyday person, everyday sim racer gets a chance to go up against Nico Hülkenberg. Like, if you told Jimmy Broadbent 10 years ago he was going to have a crash with Nico Hülkenberg, he wouldn't believe you. So I think it's a good opportunity to interact with the fans in a way that we've not really seen before. And I think you're right in that we need to kind of make sure that the market's kind of pushing hard to keep that engagement going, so that we do get our money's worth. Because the drivers are kind of sitting at home. I know a lot of them are spending time on simulators, but if they're not publicly doing that, then it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a wasted opportunity, I think. And
I think they would quite enjoy it. I mean, I think like people like Ricardo, he would be right up there. Have a go, and and if he beats them all, he says, they'll owe me a barbecue or something. I can see it now. He'll be having a good laugh. And I think like Hamilton, they all love their sim racing, don't they? So I think it would be great fun. But no, it's just really exciting to watch. And I was joking to my co-host when we tried to do the Formula One, and when we saw Nico Hülkenberg and Jimmy Broadbent come together, and he said, "Can you imagine if that was real life at the car insurance report? You'd have to put out, well, who did you crash with?" So it was Nico Hülkenberg. It was you make the headlines with that one. But I want to crash into a Formula One driver, but I'm sure it won't cost very much to fix his car. But only a small claim. But yeah, no, it is really good. So there's a lot of new races coming up. Can you give us info of what might be about to happen in the next few weeks and months?
I imagine we're probably going to see a continuation of what's already out there. I know, obviously, F1 have said that they're planning to commit to these virtual Grand Prix for a while. Veloce are running not the Australian, not the Bahrain Grand Prix, which has had like Ian Poulter and that kind of stuff in it. I'm hoping on the GT side of stuff, we're going to see more official kind of sanctioned stuff. I think that would be cool. There's a lot of leagues kind of just hosting random races, which is cool because it's got real drivers. But I think if we have something a bit more official like F1 have done, that's really going to benefit the series. I'm really curious to see what Gran Turismo do, because obviously you were saying Lewis Hamilton I think he's an ambassador, isn't he?
I've got the DLC that they did for Gran Turismo.
That's it. So it'd be really cool to see if he maybe could do some stuff as well. I think the console communities, they deserve something like this. It'd be really cool to see what comes up, I think definitely.
It's certainly a lot better than watching the celebrities sing Imagine on TV. When they... I don't want to see Lewis Hamilton sing that, thanks. I'm sure he's a good singer, but we'll leave that for others to decide. But it would be good for him to come on, and they can all get these studios in their houses and do their film clips and get it done, and then you could lead it from there, as you say. And when things get back to normal, then they could have. I mean, I think there's incredible potential for amazing events. When I was looking at some of your F1 events and GT Sport events, or the big GT events that you were doing, I mean, the showcase. Kind of the exhibition kind of way that you lay it out is fantastic, and the atmosphere inside of those places must be really electric.
That's it, yeah, definitely.
When they all gather in. So yeah, no, it's really good. But it's interesting because one of the big questions that we always get on the show is the top tips. And as you're a professional esports driver and all of that, they're always saying, yes, that's all very well, but how can I go quicker? So I was wondering, do you have any kind of, say, a few tips for all our viewers who are desperately on their simulators as soon as the show finishes to go back and have a go? What would you say is a few top tips to go faster on their games and simulators?
Yeah, I think the first big tip is you need to spend time with the software. I think we were kind of, before we went live, we were just talking about how you'd kind of tried out GT Sport. Well, you're playing GT Sport commonly, but tried out Project Cars too. And you were saying the handling was slightly different, wasn't it? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. It was really hard. It was heavy and unresponsive. Anyway, it was really difficult. Yeah.
Well, that's it. So you've got that little bit of variation between software. And I think at the moment, like, people might see, oh, there's a race this week with F1 drivers. They're going to try and qualify for that. But then there's one with GT drivers and they want to qualify for that. I think you're much better just enjoying yourself and committing to one game. For example, I use a set Corsa Competizione and understanding the handling physics behind the car. Then the more, it just comes back to basics after that, really. So, your throttle and brake application needs to be nice and smooth. The steering inputs should be smooth as well. None of this jittering around the wheel. I know we see a lot of like rally drivers and stuff. They're constantly obviously having to make adjustments. But when it comes to big cars like GT cars, there's that much weight that needs to be shifted. You need to be smooth because otherwise, the car can't respond that quickly. So I think for me, it all comes down to basics and just being consistent and almost committing to the movements that you're making, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and trying to look very far ahead as well, isn't it? And I was watching one chap from, I think, Sim61, they call him, and guy is Mansell's his surname, but I don't think he's any relation to Nigel Mansell. I was trying to get in touch with him to see if he was, but he was saying, where people look is crucial, and all that kind of thing. I played the F1 game quite a bit on F1 2019, and I did quite well on the classics. I got into the top, I think it was the top 200 in the world, and that was on the Silverstone short, and I got to about I think it was in the 400s for the Silverstone long, and that was in the Ferrari from 2004. But it's quite funny though, because like the top time was like a 108 or something, or 109, and then I thought, how did they do that? Because I'm doing like a 127 or 128 or there, or whatever it was. I can't quite remember. But then so I was kind of with the pack of kind of realistic times, and then there was this like 20-second gap as to somebody's, and I thought they must have cut a whole area out of the circuit, and it must have been a bug, and they've somehow managed to do it, because there's no way you can be like 14 or 15 seconds plus behind, realistically, and be on the same lap. So even if you lose Hamilton, there's definitely something missing, there. But it's funny because every game it does handle differently, and obviously single seaters are much lighter and they respond so easily. But it's true what you say. The GT3s, they are tough. That's my worst category. That's my one I find the hardest. I've done a few on the DLC for Gran Turismo with the Lewis Hamilton one, and I think I got Monza and I got Dragon Trail. They were the two ones I managed to do. I've been 3 or 4 tenths out with other ones, but I've done a few others. But it's quite funny how they all differ. How some of them are more understeery and others are quite kind of over. They'll just so twitchy. But Group 4 is the one I seem to do reasonably well at.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's not too bad. So I think one of the big things as well is about like acceleration, isn't it? Because the key for a lot of drivers say you've got to be able to, that when you accelerate, that you shouldn't lift off again. You should be able, when you come out of a corner, you should be accelerating, and that should be enough to keep you going right the way out. And also braking early enough, because I think a lot of people brake too late, and then they run wide, and then it ruins the next corner and all the rest of it. But it's the thing. What's been one of your closest and best races that you felt you'd really, you'd beaten some big names, or you'd learned a lot during the race, because you've done obviously quite a few. Yeah,
I've been quite lucky. I think the most recent one that I can think of, and it was this Kyle Lamy race, and I actually ended up Super GT was behind me. We must have spent about 45 minutes within 4 tenths of each other.
Wow.
He was pushing hard. He's a naturally quick guy, and I've never raced before until this race. So I've got a lot of respect for him, and I've realized he was a quick guy. And it was only once we were in that kind of that zone, and it just seemed like the two of us were trading laps constantly, coming up towards other cars, getting past them and moving on. And it was so nice to be on the limit for so long. And it was hard work, and it was stressful, I guess, in a way, but it was so enjoyable at the same time, if that makes sense. I'm sure you'll understand this. It's kind of when you're in that zone or that element and everything's just going right, and you're not having to think too much. It's almost just subconscious. And so that race at Kyalami was amazing because he was in a different car to me. I think he was in a McLaren, I want to say, or something, whatever it was. So the cars handled it naturally. So there's parts of the track where he had more pace than me. And it was so nice to be constantly just trading and going up against someone who you knew was quick, coming out just on top. So it was a really good battle. It was really good fun. That was probably my most recent one. I don't know about yourself. Have you had any good battles recently?
Yes, I mean, I do. I've been doing the Dragon Trail Gardens, which is on GT Sport. That's the main one I really played, to be fair. And I've won a few. I haven't won on that one, but last week we were doing what was the one? It wasn't Suzuka, but I'm trying to remember that. It's going straight out of my head. I'm quite good at Brands Hatch. I like Brands Hatch. So when you get GT4 at Brands Hatch, I've won quite a few races there. Nice. But yeah, I think it's the fact of it's trying to keep it clean. Because I think, I try and listen to the guys that say, get a good qualifying time. So I'll maybe take an hour to try and do a lot of qualifying, try and get my time right up there. And then in turn, once I've done that, then I get out there. And it's because if you have a clean race, it's a lot better. You kind of, it's learning who to avoid as much as anything else. Because when you see them banging doors and all the rest of it in front of you, which even, I mean, I'm a B and an S rating on GT Sport. And I'm almost on the A. I'm just on the verge of getting into A. That's my goal for the next few months, to try and get into A and maintain it. But it's like when they slam into you, and then you can end up getting penalties. Even when you did know, this is, I think, I mean, one of the big problems at the moment with GT Sport is that if you get hit and you go off, you can get a penalty, and the other person gets away scot-free.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it's been quite shocking.
Oh, my goodness.
So people are quite wary about racing because they think, well, if you're trying to do better and improve your rating, you've really got to be so careful, because if you start at the back, sometimes it's easier at the back because you can see what's happening in front of you, and people go off and you do the Moses effect, as Super GT would say, and you get through. But I know it's quite a thing. But it's a great feeling when I've started like 10th on the grid, and I ended up winning a race at Brands Hatch from 10th. And that was a real, because it was again, some one or two people went wide, but it was quite a clean race, and one by one I knew I just had a bit more pace, and it just seemed to work. So that's been quite good. But I'm trying to figure out what is my best track. I wish that GT Sport had Silverstone, because I really like the Silverstone track. And they've got Lewis Hamilton's Formula One car, so I was always hoping that GT Sport would put on what they really want is like an F1 race where they supply the car. And they do it like at Brands Hatch or Silverstone. I think that would be amazing.
That'd be awesome,
carnage, but it'd be fun. It'd be a lot of fun. But I'm going to try and expand my the range, so try and get into iRacing as well. And I might even start doing a stream here and there. I'm going to get myself an Elgato streaming machine and see if I can get it all to link up and work. So no, that's the thing. But
I think iRacing's it's definitely growing in popularity at the moment. Obviously, I don't know if you saw, but they hosted a NASCAR race, I think, on Fox or ESPN in America, and it had over 1.4 million viewers at one point, which for sim racing is huge. And what I was a bit weary about, but I guess has been disproven, was that I didn't know how people were going to respond to it. If you've gone from watching real NASCAR to suddenly watching, virtual cars driving on an oval, I thought people might be a bit skeptical, but it looks like it's gone down really well, which is really cool to see.
Well, I think iRacing has quite good sound quality. And that's the big difference between GT Sport. It doesn't have great sound. But the iRacing, and I think Assetto Corsa, they were saying, is very good sound quality. And that makes a big difference, because you want to hear those V8s sing. And it's kind of different, isn't it? That's why the current F1 cars on the games, they're okay. They sound all right, but they're nothing like I think people love the classics because they can race the V8s, and the V10s. But do you have a favorite kind of pastime race where you like, if you've got a bit of, you want to have a real bit of fun, what ones do you like to choose?
Yeah, I think around the 2004 Ferrari's a really good shout. I think I guess how far you want to call it classic. Maybe the Braun GP. I can't remember, was that 2009?
Oh, yeah, 2009. Yeah, that's a great car. Yeah.
But you're right. Just back when you had engines that actually made a noise that kind of correlated with the car. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's a bit of an old topic, but the new cars just don't sound as good. You know what I mean?
No. I think to be fair, you know, Formula One says they're struggling with a new audience. And I think that's the biggest thing, because I don't think they've lost their old audience. But if you want the new generations, part of the show is the sound. And the epic sound. When I used to go to Jerez and watch the testing there, and it was incredible. Like, you'd be 2 miles away, open the window, and you could hear the cars. You know, it was amazing. I mean, you got out the car in the car park, and you were running to the track just to hear the sound, and you'd run through the bit, pay your €3 to get in, and then you're at the chicane at Jerez, and you could see them all coming round, and it was incredible. In fact, I did it back in 2008, I think it was. Was it 2007? End of 2000. No, it would have been early 2008 for Hamilton's second series. That's right, second season.
Right.
We actually walked right the way around to the back straight, and we didn't realise we weren't allowed to. But being Spanish, they didn't really care, and they just let folk go anywhere. And then they put a sign up afterwards when you've returned saying, "Why are you on the wrong side of the sign?" And you're like, "Well, we've been there all day." I got my little camera out, and I took a picture, and the first car we saw was Lewis Hamilton coming down the straight.
That's amazing.
In McLaren, and it was just amazing. It was awesome. I've got it on my YouTube channel. It's somewhere in the list of the library. But no, it's once you've heard that, then it's incredible, you know. And the only race I've ever seen live actually there was at Donington in 1993, well before you were born, and that was the seeing Senna win at Donington, and that was the most incredible lap. And we were at the Donington Loop at the back, but when the cars came round, they were deafening as they came on the warm-up lap, and then they got to the front, they got onto the grid, and all you heard, you know, they were doing their burnouts and all the rest of it. And then there was, at that point, it wasn't 5 lights; it was just a red light and a green, and that was it.
Oh my goodness!
It was amazing. And then you just heard this, whoa, the revs go right up like this, and then boom, and the kind of revs come down, and the traction comes in, and off they go. And of course, it was wet. But it was incredible. And then you just saw this kind of all the cameras going off as they came round the track, as people were flashing, you know, the cameras, and eventually the cars came. And by the time they got to us, it was Prost, Senna, Hill, and then the whole lot. And he'd got from 7th to 2nd. And then by the time he came up at the end of the loop, he was 1st. So it was astonishing. And we were in a crowd of Brazilians right behind us. And so you can imagine the wave of you know, as they were so passionate, you know. But see, that's what you have to try and capture.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Definitely.
And I think it'd be quite interesting because obviously you've got the esports influence. When you watch a race, you can sometimes hear the crowds a little bit. You know, when the race cars go past, and you can hear up the crowds. You need to do a bit more of that, though. Make it a bit louder. And
that's it. Exactly. Yeah.
A bit more, you know, a few more horns and those like the Verstappen fans when they set off the fireworks, or the orange sprays going everywhere. That would be quite, you know, that would certainly help. But yeah, it's capturing that, I think, that people really kind of want to hear. But how do you think it's going to develop? What do you think they're going to do to make it as realistic as possible?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Sound's the big thing. So obviously Codemasters produced the F1 game, but they also produced Dirt Rally, and Dirt Rally 2.0 recently released some Colin McRae DLC. So it brought out a whole new Scottish rally stages plus some kind of scenarios. And I tell you what, the old cars in the old Subarus, they sound incredible. So I don't know if it's maybe an issue specific to the F1 studio. I'm not too sure, but I think that they're going the right way about it. It's difficult, I guess, when the real cars don't sound too great. So I think you're right. I think for me, it's that immersion factor needs to be increased, especially if they're aiming this towards, you know, TV audiences.
Yeah. Well, similarly, one of the options that they were going to do with their engine updates for Formula One was, I think it was either a 2 or a 3 cylinder engine, because they actually thought it sounded better, and it would be like a big twin turbo or whatever they would do to it, you know, to make it be incredibly fast. But they similarly had, I think it was either Ross Brawn or the chap who used to be from Renault. Oh, what was his name? And they were talking about it and how they actually reckon that this 2 or 3 cylinder engine was going to be, it had a much better kind of rasp to it, and they could change the exhaust so it would sound like almost like a bike engine, so it would have a bit more kind of higher revs, because that's the thing you miss. In the old V8 engines, you had a high revving engine. Well, they rev out about 12,000. Well, the old V10s, they were like 19,000. It's incredible.
Scary.
And, you felt it, But yeah, so something that's got a bit higher rev range, and you kind of feel that if they could have a higher rev range with the current engines, it would actually sound a bit better because they get better as the revs go higher. So that would be something. But I suppose unless the esports people do all their current F1 drivers in an old car, in a F1004 or whatever it is, or something like that, all one make, then that might work. But we'll have to see what they would do. The other big one that we should look at is the touring cars. The British touring car series. They would make a tremendous esports race, I reckon. Do you know of things that are happening with that at all, or?
Not I'm aware of. I think it would be really cool to see. I think it's definitely something that people are asking for. And I think with the nature of touring cars being that you can get a bit argy-bargy, it's, you can have a bit more fun with it, I guess. The F1 games and stuff, they have the credit where it's due. They have a really nice handling and physics model. But people are still cautious about having wheel-to-wheel contact, which is really cool. So I think if you could go something like touring cars where it's a bit more... Yeah, like I say, you can go wheel to wheel and stuff, then it adds to the element factor. That was the one good thing about Assetto Corsa when we were racing these endurance races and stuff, was that you could kind of push the limits with people and the cars weren't going to fall into a million pieces. So
that's good.
Touring cars would be a really cool aspect for sure.
Yeah, I know from my generation, we used to watch it in the 90s. So we got all the best. We got the Alpha with Tarquinis and 155s going, the barrel rolling at Knockhill and places like that, which was great fun. And then you had Steve Sofer and his BMWs and John Cleland and his Vauxhall Cavaliers and all sorts of, now the cars are junk. In terms of the standard car, it was terrible, but the racing cars were very, very good. So no, I think that would be, I think you get a lot of older folk like myself, and we would love all of that to have a go. But I think we might explore iRacing and more on the Assetto Corsa. I would definitely look at that because they get very well written up. Now, there's a new game, wasn't it? Well, it was the Assetto Corsa competition that was launched a wee while ago, and that's quite different to the normal Assetto Corsa game, isn't it? It was a kind of quite a big update.
Yeah, so that is the World GT. It's an officially licensed product, so it's basically the World GT cars, tracks, that kind of stuff. So your Lambos, your Audis, Ferraris, right, and then kind of like I say, Kyalami, Suzuka, Brands Hatch, Donington, all that kind of stuff. They have just announced they're going to bring out a British GT DLC as well, so we'll see. Donington getting added, we'll see some GT4 cars coming in, and that'll be really good. It's a really, I've spoken to like David Perel and stuff. They think it's a better handling model than iRacing for GT cars. So I think if you're GT inclined, it's a really good direction to go.
Yeah. No, it's certainly going to be exciting to see what comes out and where they're all going. And what about you? Did you find that now, with the esports, are you trying to see if there's any possibilities of having a go in a real racing series as well? Are you looking for that invite by one of the big teams to say, come and have a go?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That definitely. I think if I could swindle away into a GT drive, even if it's just for a test, that would be quite the experience. But I think what I'm interested to see is, like you said, we've got this kind of, because real motorsport stopped, we've got sim drivers and real drivers coming together. I wonder if over the winter and summer breaks, if we're going to see these real drivers come back again, because now they know what the quality of racing is like. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, I think that, like, watching the first F1 race, it was completely argy-bargy. And I think, okay, it's fine for a kind of fun event, but if they want to take it seriously, then I think they have to do their best and kind of make it good. And maybe that's why you might want to have more F1 drivers in it, rather than just so much of a mixture. I mean, I think they can do those mixture events, but I think if they're going to make it really quite serious, and I think get quite a big audience, probably like you were saying with the NASCAR in America, what they would all be pretty serious NASCAR drivers probably. So it commands that audience because they think, all these guys are going to be going for it. Yes, they can do a little bit more than they can in real life in terms of more dopey moves. But this had Pastor Maldonado. Can you imagine that? That would certainly set the place going. But I think to have if they're all going for it and trying still to be fairly clean, then I think that would be brilliant, because there's a massive gap at the moment, and people are, they want it to be filled with something. So I think that would be really good, and also for obviously GT drivers as well. I think a touring car challenge would be absolutely hilarious to watch.
So where would you have it then if you were to host a touring car race? What game would you pick? Because I'm trying to think in my head. I don't know which one I'd go for.
I've played Assetto Corsa. I've got the original one. I don't have competition, so I need to get that one. But I did like the setup on that.
Okay.
And I kind of think, Gran Turismo would be good on that, because you kind of think they've got a lot. I mean, they've got a lot of the GT3, GT4 cars, but actually, I mean, if they brought out a touring car version of that, I think that would be fantastic.
That's a good chance.
Because they do have a lot of classic cars. They've got the Ferraris from the 60s and 70s, and if they can put a blooming Fiat 500 in, they can surely put in a Vauxhall Cavalier. But it was, I don't know what's worse. But I think that would be it. And who should get to introduce it and do the kind of main kind of commentary? I think it should be Jeremy Clarkson and James May. I think that would be quite funny. I think if they were like the engineers, if they were allowed to go and speak to the drivers and say, "You're not going fast enough," it was like, but Though I think there's definitely room for. I think Gran Turismo would be a good one, because a lot of people know that, and it's worldwide. So it would it would get. I mean, when they put the Lewis Hamilton pack on that, I mean, a lot of people bought that and did it, and it was great fun. And it was so hard to watch when Super GT completed it in about 2 hours. And then I was after about 12 days, and I managed to get one track to the diamond sign. But it was like so. But you do learn a huge amount, because you think, okay, you analyze what you've done, and then you try and make it better. And in time you learn, right, okay, I can cut this bit, use a bit more curb, get my acceleration better, braking better. It would be. I think it's a huge world of esports now, and so there's lots of scope for it to improve. Other than that, we need Formula Ford. Like the basic Formula Ford single seaters.
Yeah,
they would make a spectacular, because you don't have downforce at the back and things. So it would be. I mean, they did the Red Bull cars. It was a kind of what do they call it? It's not a real car. It's done for the
concepts. Is that?
Yeah, the concept car, and they've got it's a kind of extreme. There's two versions of it, and they're quite good because they've got quite a lot of grip, and they're quite easy to drive, and they're a lot of fun. And if they put them on a small track, it's hilarious. You can have a lot of laughs for that. But I think Formula Ford would be quite good. So if they had that, imagine that at Donington. That would be bring back the old memories, and it's a great British track to have, But and then they could bring back. I want to see it at the old Imola. I know a lot of the games have the current Imola, but I think the Imola pre-1994, when they had the old Tamburello corner, which was a very challenging corner, that was the one.
I'm trying to think.
That was the one where Senna was killed. But the one where he went off because it didn't have chicanes. It was this one kind of long corner, and then it went into Tosa kind of at the end. So it was, that's why they loved it, because it was an incredible challenge. And I think with esports, you can go back to the old style of circuits, and then people think, well, actually, we drove the old one, which was the one where you really had to be brave, So I think it could be, and it would bring back that kind of passion, because I always thought when they changed the track after the accidents, I mean, as terrible as it was, the drivers wanted to drive those tracks, and I kind of think, part of it is keeping but you could fit, they could have made a bit more runoff. They could have knocked down trees and made it safer. But I think with the esports, you don't have that problem. You can just have the track.
Exactly, yeah.
That's it. There were lots of differences. I mean, I'm not saying go back to Spa from the 1960s where it was lethal, but we had houses literally on the side of the track when Jim Clark was racing there and all that kind of stuff. But it's that, there's lots of scope. Is there a track you would like to see that isn't maybe used so much at the moment?
Yeah, I think Old Imola is actually a really good shout, because it was a really fast flowing circuit. I mean, I've always been a fan of the Hockenheim ring, and I know that's kind of come in and out of racing as it goes. Even the old layout of that, when you went through the forest, was another circuit. So I think
that'd be a great one.
Yeah, I think, like you said, because we don't have these restrictions with even land space, it'd be really cool to see that track come back, I think.
Yeah, I hope that was the next one on the thing. I thought actually, Hockenheim would be fantastic. Hockenheim in the wet, with when you've got a mist as you go into the trees. It's like that. And the old '93 V12s. That would be one of the old categories of.
Lovely.
That would be. One of my co-hosts actually, Andrew Marr, he went to the last Hockenheim Grand Prix when it was the old layout.
Oh, wow.
And he said it was phenomenal, absolutely incredible. I think it was the year, it was 2001, I think it was. I think he saw either Barrichello win, or I'm not sure. He's making lots of comments. So I'll figure out, Andrew, if he's listening, you can tell me what year it was and who won. But no, I mean, that would be an amazing track. That would be something else. And also you get like some of the old tracks that are not used anymore, like Portugal. Portugal was quite a good track. That was...
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was a street circuit.
There was Estoril, which you can still go to today. I'm trying to think of other tracks as well that would be good. But no, that's fantastic. Well, I think we've covered quite a fair bit in half an hour on the show. But I mean, is there anything that we can help promote for you, for the guys who are watching, as to, we know if things that you're doing that you would like to promote? We'll be more than happy to put it out there for you.
Yeah, I think the biggest news is David Perel recently has launched his Coach Dave Academy, so I'm going to be helping him along with that, not in terms of coaching, but just in the back end. So it's a dedicated coaching for sim racers by real racers, which is really cool. So the likes of David's himself on there. He's just announced Jordan Pepper, that Bentley Continental driver, has joined. And you can visit that on CoachDaveAcademy.com, I believe is the website. And that's been really cool to see for people who are, whether you're on console or PC, being able to benefit from coaching from people who understand the cars and have had the real world experience. So that's the biggest news that's been launched, and it'd be really cool to see some people jump across onto that for sure. Yeah, that'd be really good. And actually, I was going to say, the Scottish Motor Racing Club are doing a big event. It's called Drive Fest in Kelso in the Scottish borders, and they're hoping to have some esports people coming along to that. It's going to be on the 23rd of August. Now, as far as I know, it's still going ahead with all the things that have been happening. And hopefully it will still be. I mean, that's quite a long way away. But they were actually, one of the guys who was I was speaking to there had asked me to get in touch with esports people. So that might be something for perhaps a date in the diary, because he's got a budget and they are looking to bring people up to do. They're going to have the Formula One simulators there and other simulators. So perhaps that might be a great way of, with your association with Thrustmaster and things like that, and with those kind of intros, we could have you up there, we could get something sorted out. That would be great. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Josh. It's been absolutely fantastic as usual, and thank you very much for giving us the time today. On this, it's almost not quite Easter, but it's just about. So, what are your plans for the rest of the day? Any motor racing issues? Or I've got a 12-hour race next month. Well, I say next month. It's in about 2 weeks from now. There's myself, James Baldwin, the world's fastest gamer, David Perel, and Matteo Crescenti. I butchered his name. He's a GT driver. We're going to be teaming up for that, so we'll be getting some practice in for that, which will be really exciting. But again, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on and to chat to someone who's so passionate about racing and sim racing. It's great fun. So thank you for having me as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. And let me know all of your updates. Put it onto our Facebook page, and we'll put it out there, and we'll mention it on our shows. And it's fantastic to have you on the show. It's always a pleasure. And as I say, stay safe. And as our motto goes, drive fast and try not to crash. Speak to you soon. If you stay on the line, and I'll end the broadcast there for the live show. Thanks to all our listeners and viewers. You've been listening to the Car, Sim and Race Driver Show, and we'll see you soon. Bye just now.